real focus of the company has been the adapters that we have built for every major practice management system and financial system. Once we did that, we were able to enable several apps, and we have 26 apps which have been built by Sika Software and partners, which can connect to the practice and help doctors as well as office team members maximize their profitability. So let's keep going forward, and I will introduce you a little bit onto some of the practice management systems that we can work with. So we can seamlessly integrate with all of these that you see here on your screen and all versions, past and present. So that's covering approximately 96% of the dental market. So we can work with Dentrix and SoftDent and EagleSoft, Easy Dental, Mogo, PracticeWorks, WinDent, Open Dental, AbleDent, Planet DDS, you name it. In addition to all the general practitioner software, we also work with all the specialty software, so oral surgery as well as orthodontia and endodontics as well as periodontics. Let's go to the next slide. And it all started with a very simple need, and that was, my wife asking me a question, well, how do I set my fee schedule in the practice? And that's really the genesis of this company, which we started 10 years ago. And let's go to the next slide. This is our distribution of practices. So we have approximately 23,000 providers who are distributed across the entire United States. And it's an opt-in information where we do not have any identifier information, but it's only roll-ups and summaries and HIPAA and HITECH compliant data that we gather so that we can provide you benchmarking information. The distribution of practices is as follows. 12% of our practices make less than $250,000 a year, and 12% of them make $1.5 to $2 million a year. So that gives you a good idea that they're not just focused on very large practices or very small practices. 50% of our practices make less than $850,000 a year. And that's completely in alignment with what American Dental Association and other major organizations consider the average for the industry. So with that, let me just share with you really quickly some of the strength of our platform. So the Sika platform, which downloads in about few seconds and installs in approximately 5 minutes, sits on your computer in your practice, is able to automatically connect to all practice management systems, and it works with a 96% coverage of the dental market, with over 12,000 practices being accessed, and we have nearly 42,000 zip codes in our fee schedule database. So we can help you out with fee schedules. And we have apps which work off of this platform, and the sheer volume of transactions and the number of new offices being added is incredible. We have approximately $4.7 billion worth of customer transactions happening on the Sika platform, with over 110 million transactions per month. And that's a quick introduction to the Sika platform. With that, I'm going to turn this over to a very important subject for me. Our platform has passed security audits of every major corporation and partners. So we take data security very, very seriously. And our production environment has been evaluated by companies and organizations such as American Dental Association, Benco, Citibank, CDA, Henry Schein, Reyes Kulzer, Internet Brands, Midmark, and so on. And we have successfully passed the security audits. And these link with the patient privacy and the HIPAA compliance and all that. So at this point, I'm going to take a quick pause and invite a very good friend of mine, Dennis Marvel. You already heard his introduction from Daniel. And Dennis is going to walk you through how he uses his amazing background in helping practices achieve maximum success using the Sika software apps. So without further ado, here's Dennis Marvel.
Thank you, Vijay, and good morning, everybody. Daniel, can you see my screen?
I can now.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you for that great introduction, Vijay. As Daniel mentioned at the beginning of the call, my name is Dennis Marvel. It's just like Captain Marvel, if any of you that recommend or remember that old character. And I am a senior partner and board member for Fortune Practice Management. We're a nationwide practice management company. I use the Practice Optimizer developed by Sikasoft and Vijay as my primary source of business intelligence in the practices that I work with. And so I'd actually like to walk you through a very simple formula and a new report that's been developed that can help you drive your practice to massive financial success. And I'm going to start by sharing a, let me see if I can get to my, I want to start by sharing what is the basis for success in looking at the dental industry. And Vijay recently created an entirely new tool called the Success Dashboard that measures all of the practices that he has the software installed in and ranks them one against another on some really key business metrics and key business drivers that determine ultimate success within the healthcare industry. And what you're looking at is two of the actual dashboards for two practices that I work with, one that came in at the 100th percentile and one that came in the 99th percentile. And what I can tell you is that of all the practices that we work with, the average annual growth this year over the same period last year is in excess of 20%. And we find that the majority of the practice we work with can achieve this kind of top decile performance by really focusing on the key business metrics that impact their business the most. And my intent today is to share with you a very simple formula that I teach that can help you achieve success. Then look at the actual key metrics and some of the things you can do to really drive your results in those key areas. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to type them into the dashboard. Daniel will relay those to us as we go. And we'll try to leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So let me start with what I call my ultimate success formula. And it really is 4 easy steps. And if I was to ask you, Doctor, if I could share with you 4 easy steps that would help you not only make your practice more successful, your team more successful, but any endeavor you choose to pursue in life more successful, I think that's something that would probably entertain you for a bit. So we're going to look at the 4 quick steps, and they're actually really easy. The first is to really know your outcome. What is it that you're actually trying to achieve? And I'm not just talking about making more money. I have doctors say that to me all the time, and that's pretty easy. I could give them a $10 bill and make them go home with more money. The reality is, what is it you're actually trying to achieve? Your business should be designed to serve your life, not the other way around. So designing the outcome that you want to accomplish and how that incorporates into your entire life is of critical importance. And the more clarity you have here, the more likelihood you're actually going to achieve that outcome you're desiring. The next step is to take massive action. And in that, I don't always mean working harder. I just mean pursue several avenues that you believe can help you achieve the outcome that you're driving towards. The third step, and really the most important, is what most people miss in business today. And that is you have to monitor your results. And that is where the Sika software platform comes into place for me, because we can design very clear outcomes that we're trying to achieve in a practice and monitor those results on a day-to-day basis, which allows us to more nimbly respond to things that are happening in the marketplace and within the practice before they show up on the profit and loss statement or in your personal bank account. Then the fourth step is really quite simple. You change your approach until you get the desired result. And I liken this to a sailboat on the open ocean. They can't sail in a straight line. They have to tack. They have to flow with the wind. And you have to be willing to adjust your course as necessary to make sure that you're totally focused on that desired outcome you want to achieve. So now that we kind of have this ultimate success formula in place, let's take a look at the business of dentistry and the business of healthcare providers and really break down some of the things that can help you become more successful every day. And the first is I focus on really 5 business engines when I'm working at a practice. And all of the things that go on in your practice, all the tasks, all the doing, all the processes and the procedures can fall into one of these 5 categories. And it's really important for the doctor to be able to build a structure where he can lead from the center bubble of the vision. And then everything outside of that has to be totally aligned with that vision. That is that outcome of what I'm trying to achieve. And so, the first is obvious. It's the finance. That's the tracking the numbers. Do we have good financial policies and procedures in place? And are we collecting what we're producing? Are we actually driving 20 to 30 points to the bottom line easily before owner compensation? Then the next component is your organization. Do you have true processes and structures in place to orchestrate every piece of your business to ensure that it performs at the highest level possible? And when I talk about processes and procedures, it's not just a collections policy or a scheduling protocol. We really orchestrate every single step of your practice, all the way down to your new patient experience, your recall program, and all of those things to ensure that the patients have the highest experience possible and you're able to deliver the highest standard of care possible. The next business engine is sales and marketing, and this is one of the most critical areas, and unfortunately most healthcare providers are never taught anything about sales and marketing. And in this hyper-competitive environment, and with the entree of more corporate competitors into this arena, we're all going to have to become better experts at the sales and marketing process. I teach a process I call patient enrollment, because I believe sales is about the person doing the selling, and I believe patient enrollment is about taking care of the patient and making it easy for them to get the care that they need. And so we teach a process that makes that happen at the customer level. The next business engine is clinical and technology. And in this environment, you have to be on the cutting edge of your clinical skills. You have to be able to deliver a really high-level standard of care. And you also have to really be bringing some of the newer technologies to bear in your practice, because patients tell me all the time they've actually left practitioners because they didn't see anything new in there in the last decade. And we all know, 10 years ago, we weren't carrying around little computers in our pocket called iPhones. And so while they may not understand all the new technology that's available in dentistry, they start to get uneasy if you're not deploying it in your practice. The final business engine here I leave for last because it is the most important, and that is the people on your team that drive your practice. What we ultimately want to create is a team-driven practice that frees the doctor up to do what they were trained to do and do what they do best, which is take care of the patient. We also recognize that team culture is what creates the patient's expectation and experience of how they understand your care. Because whether you realize it or not, most patients have no way of judging your standard of care unless something goes wrong. So they're making decisions based on their experience of you as a business and of your team as practice providers. So we devote a lot of our resources into really driving that. And that's part of what is counterintuitive about success in the healthcare business, is it's not always about a success or a process. Very often it's about who we're being versus what we're doing. So having all 5 of these business engines firing at the same time is a challenge in this business, but it's also made much easier by being able to look at it in a model that's fairly simple and easy to understand. So now that we have a context for what are the primary business engines of a practice, I want to lay out the one thing that I call the law of the platinum ceiling. And I call it the platinum ceiling because we have a group in Fortune that is called the Platinum Circle, that is a group of doctors that was formed by doctors that kind of have the same philosophy. And in that, they all recognize that it is their leadership ability that determines their practice effectiveness. So one of the primary things we work with doctors on is how to become a truly effective leader of their team and of their patients. And what I can promise you is that if you adopt this definition of leadership, and by the way, this is an evolving definition I've been working on for quite a few years, and it is that you have the ability to influence positive change through others in service of shared goals. And there's a couple of components to that. You have to be able to influence the change through other people. That doesn't mean you do it all yourself. It also states that it has to be in service of shared goals, which means your team has to have bought into that vision, which fell at the center of our 5 business engines. They have to be actively enrolled in pursuing the path that you've laid out for them to follow. That is what leadership is all about. And I can tell you in this environment, that is one of the largest separators between practice that achieve greatness and practices that are just performing at a mediocre level. So once we've started to tackle your leadership, now we can actually start to look at the exact things that are really driving success within the practice. And the SICA Success Dashboard is a new measure that's been created utilizing a bunch of the scorecards that SICA has had in place for years, but really determining what are those key metrics that you can look at and you can judge to really drive the overall performance of your practice. And when I first saw this report, I was really surprised by the simplicity of recognizing that if you can tackle these few key things, they can actually have a very exponential result on your business. And I'm actually going to show you, once I've walked through these, a very simple model that you can utilize to drive truly exponential growth of 23, 33, 43% per year, and how you can see that that is actually a possibility. So the first key metric that the dashboard measures is your comprehensive exams to new patients. And invariably, when I'm talking to new doctors that I don't know very well, they'll tell me, yes, all of my new patients get a comprehensive exam. But what we find is when we actually go in and measure this at the practice, that there will be some percentage of new patients that are not getting comprehensive exams. And very frequently, those can be emergency patients, they can be site-specific exams, and our intent is always to follow up and re-enroll them in our new patient experience and get them a comprehensive exam. Unfortunately, what I find is that most of those patients fall through the cracks and don't really get enrolled as a primary patient within the practice receiving comprehensive care. So my belief is that every new patient that comes in the door, even if it's an emergency, should get a comprehensive exam and should go through the entire new patient process so that they have a choice to really choose you as their provider for life. And, you know, what is an acceptable ratio here? My target is 100%. I can tell you if you're getting 95, that's pretty effective. But there's no reason why that other 5% should be treated any less than your regular new patient. The next area is total collection to adjusted production. And what is an acceptable ratio here? The reality is that there is some percentage of monies that are produced that will not be collected. But in today's environment, that should be 99% or better. Your adjusted production is the dollars that are due to you from insurance companies and patients after all adjustments for PPO and things like that are taken into place. And there's no reason why you can't collect 100% of that. Because of the nature of the business of dentistry, really successful practices actually collect more than they produce every single year because of the fact that so many patients are driven by insurance benefits expiring at the end of the year. So every December, you're producing more than you did the December before, which gets collected in January, and should allow you to actually sustain an adjusted production to total collection ratio of about 105 to 107%. The third key metric is total no-shows to total patient appointments. And this is really a great metric that is driven, again, by the people in your practice. And my belief is that 1/3 of your ability to be successful in your practice all comes down to how elegant and how high quality your communication with your patient is, and how elegant the communication with the front desk team is with the patient. Because no-shows, late cancellations, and all those things are all directly attributable to one thing, and that is the communication your front desk team is having with your patient. And there will always be some ratio of no-shows that happen in a practice but it should be very, very low. 1% or less is my target. So if you look at the total patient appointments you had over a given period of time, and in the course of the year, that could be 7 or 8, 9, 10,000, depending on how many practitioners you have, and how many no-shows do you have from that, it should be less than 1%. If it's any less than that, I really encourage you to take a look at your confirmation processes, but mostly focus on the exact language your team is using in those processes, because in my opinion, that is the one thing that drives this metric and help you make your schedule more effective. The fourth metric is total patients referred to total active patients. And this is actually one of my favorite measurements, because if you have 50% of your patient bases giving you at least one referral throughout the life of their relationship with you, that means that you have a really great patient experience and you're really taking care of people. So this one metric can really read a lot into what is your culture, what is your standard of care, how well do people feel cared for, and how engaged are they actually in your practice. Because if you can accomplish a very high level of engagement and a feeling of belonging in a place where patients know they're being taken care of, they will drive referrals to you. And referrals are by far the #1 new patient source that you should be seeking every single day. The fifth key metric that we look at is actually average daily adjusted production to average daily scheduled production. This is a very interesting metric because it gauges two things. #1 is schedule efficiency. You should have some level of production that is above what is on the schedule every single day, because you'll go in and you'll start on the 3 surface filling and it'll turn into a crown, or you'll be doing some work on one teeth and you'll notice some decay on another, and you'll do that filling while you're there. But that amount should actually be a fairly narrow margin. And if that is so, and you're actually producing just a little bit more than what you have on the schedule every day, that means you have a truly refined schedule, as long as that metric is at the level necessary to achieve your goals. And it's very important, again, to know exactly what your outcome is, know exactly how many patient contact days do I have, and know what I should be producing every single day. And then what is each provider's share of that production every single day. Then you can design a true schedule-to-goal system that can help you become more effective. The next key metric is one on insurance. If you are an insurance provider, a really great metric to look at is what is the total claims pending greater than 30 days to the total claim I have outstanding in total. And what this tells you is how effectively your insurance processes are working, because the average time it should take to collect on a claim today is actually under 30 days. Because of the advancements in technology and electronic claims processing and direct deposit, you can actually get your average pending claims down to 16 to 18 days if you're really, really effective. Another measure I use in this realm quite a bit that's not included in the success report is what is an acceptable amount of accounts receivable out there today. And it used to be an old industry standard that if you had 1.1 times your monthly collections and accounts receivable, you were doing okay. The reality is, if you're using your technology effectively, you can get that down to 0.5%, and I've even got a couple of practices that are operating below a 0.4%, and that means your cash is getting in the bank faster, which is always a positive result. The next key metric is unique treatment plans scheduled to treatment plans created, and this is really, what is your case enrollment? How many cases do you have to present to actually get a client to accept treatment? And I hear a lot of different measures out there of what is acceptable. A lot of speakers out there are talking 70 or 80%. I believe if you are really engaged with your patients and you have great patient relationships, you can actually get that to a 90% mark. So when we look at unique treatment plans, that's unique patient. That means if you create 2 alternative treatment plans for one patient, it's only considered one treatment plan for purposes of this measure. And in your operating system, whichever one they select, you should mark decline on the other, because that helps your numbers become more effective. The next key metric is really increasing your fees utilizing the fee optimizer. One of my favorite capacities of the Practice Optimizer program is actually the Fee Optimizer, where I can look and base exactly on where your practice is located, know exactly what fees are out there, what people are charging, where's the 70th, the 80th, and the 90th percentile. Then we can look at the number of procedures you perform in your practice and find a way to actually optimize your fee schedule to drive dollars to the bottom line. Because it's always not about, am I just increasing my fees? The way you increase them and which procedures you increase has a really dramatic impact on the bottom line. And Fee Optimizer takes this very complex task and makes it really quite easy to understand. The next key metric is total production to your total production goal. This one is when I set my goal at the beginning of the year, when I do my annual planning meeting and I decide what I want to accomplish, am I actually on track to accomplish that goal? And am I ahead of my goal on a daily basis? One of my favorite parts of the Practice Optimizer is myself and my clients, we can actually decide to receive email reports every single day that tell me exactly how we're progressing towards our monthly goals and our annual goals so that we can make sure we stay on track and we're adjusting course in enough time to really affect the end outcome. The next metric is patients on your hygiene program to active patients. This is one of the ones I'm most passionate about because I think as healthcare providers, most of you want to be in the preventative realm as opposed to just treating people with dis-ease. And one of the key cornerstones of a really successful dental practice today is, do they have a really effective preventative process? And is their hygiene department really fully engaged? There's a couple of key measures that I look at here. This particular one is how many active patients do you have and how many of them have been in for a hygiene procedure in the last 6 months. That's a great measure. It gives you a really high-level overview of how many people are engaged in hygiene in your particular practice. Two other measures I believe you also want to look at are, what is my hygiene effectiveness rate? Meaning if I have 1,000 patients and I only saw 1,000 recare exams last year, I only have a 50% effectiveness rate. I should have seen 2,000 because of the 1,000 patients coming in every 6 months. The second metric I like to look at here is, what is my perio percentage? What percentage of my patient population is actually receiving active periodontal maintenance appointments? And as you all know, we all heard the statistics, 70–80% of the U.S. population has some form of periodontal disease, and we're only treating a very small fraction of those. So we try to drive this number to 30–40% when possible. I can tell you if you're doing 20, you're actually doing pretty well. Next, total no-shows to total patient appointments. This is really how well do your patients respect your time and how deep is your connection with those people. Because patient no-shows is all about a lack of response to who you are as a profession and who you are as a practice. And if we can really dial that number in and make it very minimal, that's going to make your schedule that much more effective than it is today. The final metric that I really want to talk about here is total patients referred to the total active patients. And this is a little bit of an adjustment from what we talked about earlier, that how many of your active patients are actually sending you referrals every single day. And I discussed this one twice just because I think it is one of the most important measures in practice management today, because it really helps us define what is our entire culture, what do our patients think of us, and do they trust and respect us enough to be referring their friends and family to us. So those are the key metrics that exist on the Sitka dashboard. And what I'd like to do now is take a look at another practice that we work with actively. When you look at your practice, these are two key measures that really determine what is your long-term success. And the chart you see on the top, this is the active patient count of an exact practice from 2010 to 2014. You can see when they bought this practice in 2010, there were 724 active patients. And today at 2014, they're averaging 1748 a month. That's a healthy growth and a healthy retention rate for active patients in a practice. The chart you see on top of that actually mirrors that, and that is the adjusted production and collection for the same practice. So as you can tell, the average patients and their engagement in the practice is totally what drives your revenue and the revenue to the bottom line of your practice. So If your charts don't look this good, go back to the success report, look at what are the key metrics we can drive, because this is the result you can all achieve with attention on those key business metrics. Finally, I'd like to share with you what are the 3 ways that I see to grow a business. And this is a model that is really, really simple, but can result in actually exponential growth. And when I talk about exponential growth, doctors look at me all the time and go, oh, 30% growth is impossible. So I want to show you how that's possible, because if you could actually just increase your new patient base by 10%, and you could get your patients to come in 10% more frequently, and then you could actually get them to spend 10% more on each of those visits, that actually results in a 33% increase to the top line revenue of your business. It's a simple model. 10% in 3 areas results in 33%. If you can dial these 3 categories up 20%, it's a 66% annual growth rate. And as you can see from the list in each of these categories, these are all things we do every day. And it only takes very minor tweaks in each of these systems to end up with a 10% result in each category. So when we look at a business, you've got to monitor what do you have going on out there. You have to use the Sika software programs to really gauge what's effective. Are you getting the results that you really want? And you have to do it on a regular basis. When we talk about the law of contribution, and I will close with this, it's a really simple process of making sure every part of your business is contributing the maximum amount it possibly can. You have to optimize your facility, make sure that it's productive as humanly possible. You have to optimize your people, making sure you've got the right people in the right seats on the bus and the right people doing the right roles. This is one of the biggest challenges I see in healthcare practices today. You also have to optimize your services. What is the demographic I serve, and what is it that they really want? How can I serve them at a higher level? And then how do I optimize my affordability? Because pricing pressure that has begun in dentistry is going to continue. We've got to find ways to provide more and more value so that we can continue to justify the growth in our business and continue to serve our patients at a higher level. We have to optimize our reimbursements from insurance. That means maximizing your team's understanding of effective coding and uses of insurance processing procedures to really make sure that that happens quite well. And you've got to optimize your business model. Who is the target that I serve? How can I serve them most effectively? And what is the most effective steps for me to take to get from where I am today to where I want to go? So that is my 30-second infomercial on the Practice Optimizer and the Success Report. We'd like to open it up to any questions any of you may have, and I'll turn it back over to Daniel Roten.
Thanks, Dennis. That was really good stuff. Thank you for your time and your input there. Did you have one more slide, Dennis, about your contact info?
I do, and I just put it up there. And as part of all of you attending this seminar, Sika asked us what would we be willing to do to kind of help all of you out as participants in the call. And as a free service to you, complement of Sika software, we would be willing to do a complimentary consult to you and actually provide a comprehensive practice analysis and opportunity assessment for you in your practice. We have 100 coaches across the country, so we've probably got somebody right in your backyard. I want to give you my personal contact information. That's my cell phone. You see up on the screen, 206-718-8567, and that's my personal email address, dennis@fortunemgnt.com. Feel free to reach out to me if there's any way I can help all of you, and we'll be glad to get you connected with somebody that can perform a comprehensive practice analysis for you so you can actually see where the opportunities you have to achieve the kind of results we've talked about today.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dennis. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my screen here. So this is going to be our Q&A session. We did receive some questions from the attendees. I'm not sure if Vijay is still on the call, but this one was directed to you, Vijay, and it has to do with whether or not we're compatible with medical practice management softwares.
That's a good question, Daniel. So we are, as of right now, we are not compatible with many medical practice management system softwares, but we will continue to inform this group if we do become compatible.
And Vijay, I've got some monitors that are obviously Excel-based while you're building out your technology, that if anybody on the call today would like to receive copies of those for their traditional medical world, it would depend on what your specialty is, but feel free to reach out to me. I can absolutely get you some of those systems that you can put in place in your practice while developing the other programs.
Okay, great. Thanks, both of you. We had another question. This is regarding profitability with, well, I'll just read the question, it'll probably be easier. Is it possible to have a high-level profitability when most of the patients have contracted PPO dental insurance?
Yeah, Daniel, I'd be happy to answer that. The answer to the question is absolutely yes. When I talk about driving 40 or 50% to the bottom line, I'm up here in Washington State where Delta Dental cut fees 4 years ago. They haven't allowed any fee increases in many years. I work with practices that are both fee-for-service and PPO, and I can tell you an effectively run practice can be very profitable in both models. You have to recognize that insurance is a form of marketing, so the little bit of fees that you're given up to get those patients enrolled in your practice, I consider marketing dollars. And so I look at the cost of being a member of a PPO as a marketing program, and I'm always calculating what is my ROI for participating in that program. Is it profitable for my doctors? And there's absolutely no reason why you can't drive that kind of profitability as a PPO provider.
All right, excellent. We have one other question here. I think this is to Dennis. What is the ratio of total referrals to total active patients that would be typical? And I would add to that, what would be a goal that you would, a goal ratio for that particular metric?
Yeah, I don't think there is a typical, because I see it all over the board when I walk into a new practice. My goal is to have 50% of the active patients in the practice refer at least one person during their time as an active patient of the practice. Now, that's a pretty broad measure. The real goal to drive referrals are to find those few people in your practice who are going to go out and spread the word. Seth Godin called them sneezers, and they go out into the community and they will really become a source of new patients for you, the likes of which you can't recreate. And we use the referral tree in the optimizer all the time for this. And I had one practice that we traced one patient sending 32 referrals in one 12-month period into this practice. And you want to identify those people and really acknowledge them and thank them for what they're doing to help drive that overall result. You can also drive that pretty easily by doing some pretty effective referral campaigns. They just have to be designed really well, because you don't want to reward people for sending you a referral, although you want to thank them. You want to design a system that's going to encourage them to drive referrals to you because they think you're such an awesome practice.
That's great. Any ideas or bullet points about, how to get a patient that would get us 30 referrals in a 12-month period?
Yeah, everybody has them in their practice. It's identifying who they are first. So usually what happens is we'll get a referral to somebody, and the front desk person will go into the practice management software, and they'll just put referral from patient. I actually ask our teams to track who is it that patient came from, so that I know who's sending me multiple referrals. When you get that first referral from a patient, you really want to acknowledge them. Send them a thank you, send them some flowers to their business, do something really nice for them, and that encourages the process to continue. By really having an active conversation with the patients in the practice, that's what makes all the difference in the world. I see way too many practices out there that rely on signs in their reception area or on the front desk, say, we're now accepting new patients, please send us your referrals. That doesn't work. You have to have a real conversation with how much you appreciate having that person as a patient and how you want more patients just like them.
Awesome. Thanks, Dennis. So one more question, and then we'll kind of dismiss here. The question is how often do I need to look at my data, and and how does the decision-making process work after I'm looking at the data, and then what? And so how often do I look, and then what would be some action steps I can take based on what I'm looking at?
That's a really great question. And I can tell you as a practice consultant and a success coach, I look at my practices every single week and do a detailed drill down on every single practice. I look at the key metrics that each individual practice really has to focus on, because everybody is different and everybody has different challenges at different points in time. Looking at some of the key reports available in Practice Optimizer, obviously your daily report is probably your most important, that you're doing a really effective team huddle with your team and drilling down on the patients that are coming in that day and knowing exactly where you are progressing towards your monthly goal. Then I have metrics that I review once a week, and then I have metrics that I review once a month. So it really kind of depends on where every single practice is. Now, the real trick to the question that was asked, Daniel, is what do I do once I know that number? And it's really having the understanding of, okay, this is where I want to be, but this is where I am today. What can I do to close that gap? And some of the best answers I've heard to that, by the way, were questions I asked of my clients as opposed to direct guidance I was giving them of what could you do to really drive this result? Because what I find is that most of us have all the resources we need to really be able to accomplish a lot more than we are today. We just need to be able to open up the space and explore the possibilities there. So while there is an endless list of things you can do to close those gaps, which ones are most effective for you really depends on your practice. Who are you as a practitioner? What do you stand for, and how do you practice, and where it is you want to go? Knowing which metrics to track the success report can really help you with that, because it's really focused on the 10 most important ones that I think can help you accomplish a successful growing practice.
Okay, super. Thank you, Dennis. Well, that's it for our Q&A session. Feel free to keep asking your questions, and we'll do our best to get you answers to those via email or in some other way. And some of you have asked also if this recording will be available somewhere in the future, and the answer is yes. We have recorded this webinar session, and we will make sure it's either online for you to go and get, and we have the attendee list, so we can send you a link to the video once we have it posted, or we can get it to you by other means as well. So we will be sharing copies of this webinar for you. I also just wanted to mention real quick, if you're attending, that we do have a sweepstakes going on here at CICA. You can all you need to do is basically enter to win, and if you're using our one of our products, whether it's the free Practice Monitor, which we have available, or if you're a current customer, you're entered to win up to $10,000. You can find out more at sweepstakes.cicasoft.com. And also, I wanted to share our contact info with you as well. If you have questions about the CICA Success Dashboard, what it does, how do I get plugged into that, or about Practice Optimizer program, which helps you basically manage your practice from top to bottom and set goals and to get you to achieve massive practice success. If you have any questions regarding any of those products or things that Dennis had talked about, you can send an email to support@cicasoftware.com, or you can call our 1-800 number and talk to either one of my agents in customer success, or you can talk to sales as well. And that brings us to the end of our webinar on achieving massive practice success. I want to give a big thanks to Vijay for presenting his segment. It's always a pleasure. And then also a very big thanks to Dennis Marvel and for all the insight and wisdom you've shared. I think you're becoming, at least in my mind, the practice whisperer. And so I thank you for your time and your expertise there. And so thank you to everybody who's attended, and we'll see you next time here at CICA Software. Thanks.
You're welcome, Daniel. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a great day, everybody.